everyone, Jim here for Mystery and Mayhem. I hope you're all doing well on this cold, cold day. Where I am, it's very wintry, very cold outside right now. I realized I haven't really been doing any regular reading updates. I know it's something that a lot of people do on their channels. They do regular weekend reading updates, and every month they'll do an update of what they've been reading that month. And I know it's something I haven't been doing, and I'm not sure if it's something I'll keep doing or do as a regular thing on my channel. I mean, you can let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd like to see from me, or if you'd just like to see more of my my books that I have on my shelves, if you'd like me to feature them. But I thought I would at least do a January update, what I've been reading this year so far. I think, a couple live streams I did, I mentioned some books that I was reading, but I really haven't shared it with you guys. So, I'll get to it right now. I'll just make a quick video and cycle through what I've been reading in January. I think the first one I read in January was this book called The 10-Cent Plague by David Hadju, and this deals with the comic book scare in the 50s, the whole seduction of the innocent, and the Senator Kefauver hearings, against comics, where everybody was against comics and they hated it and they thought it caused juvenile delinquency and all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of it took me a while to read, but it was kind of fascinating to read. And of course, there was no basis for any of that, but it was basically a witch hunt. But it was interesting because it dealt with the infancy of comics and how they developed, and it talks to a lot of the creators of the time. And what was fascinating to me, after those Senate hearings, there was, I think, how many people? There was over 800 creators lost their job. Like, there was people who had worked in the industry, and after that happened, they never worked in the industry again, and a lot of people lost their jobs, and just a dark time in comic book history. The next book I read was this classic by D.H. Lawrence, Lady Chatterley's Lover. This one was a little dry. It was written in the 1920s, and of course it was a banned book for a couple of different reasons. And apologies if I did feature this in another one of my videos. I do these videos and then I forget exactly what I featured in them. But this one featured a lot of four-letter words. And the lady in the title, Lady Chatterley, had an affair with the groundskeeper, which is probably more the reason why it was banned back in the 20s, because she was, having an affair with somebody below her station, but it was still being banned in, at least in Canada, in the early 60s, and that was probably more because of the four-letter words. But it was an interesting book, and I'm glad I read it. It's been one I've been wanting to read for a long time, and it had some things that were relevant to current times, talking about, industrialism and consumerism and a lot of that stuff in there. It was well written too, but like I say, it was a little dry, a little tame, but as I said, I'm glad I read it. And Lady Chatterley's Lover, interesting cover for that, kind of nice design to it. Then I read this one. It's called Watch Me, kind of a hunt for a serial killer by A.J. Holt, which is a pseudonym for a writer named Christopher Hyde. Now, I really enjoyed this book. It was along the lines of a Silence of the Lambs kind of thing. And the main character in this is Special FBI Agent Jay Fletcher, which is short for Jane. Was it Jane? It's a female character. Janet Louise Fletcher is her full name. And there was only 2 books in this series, Watch Me and Catch Me. And I really enjoyed this, and we'll be reading the sequel to it very soon. But these are hard to find. You don't hear much about this writer or these two books. And even when you Google them or Google the writer, there's not a lot out there about these two books or that, that pseudonym. But it was very enjoyable. And if you ever, find these out in the wild, pick them up. And if you like that sort of thing, you'll probably enjoy that book. Then I read this hardcover, The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict, and this deals with the disappearance of Agatha Christie in 1926, and it goes back and forth between 1912 and 1926. Now, in 1912, she met her husband, and in 1926 was, December is when she disappeared. So it tells that story, and it was kind of less of a mystery and more of a story about, the dissolution of their marriage, which is it was kind of a heartbreaking story in its own way. Reading about that, and there was a bit of a denouement at the end, in typical Christie-like fashion, that she had. Well, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to spoil the ending if you do happen to read it. But I did really enjoy this book, and it is recommended if you like that sort of thing. And I picked it up because of the cover, and I love Agatha Christie. So, yeah, give that a shot. Nice, beautiful book. And then I read a real quick one. I'm trying to do my Read What You Own challenge, even though I've kind of failed it. I picked this up from a little free library box. Albert Camus, The Outsider. And that's just a neat cover. I love that cover, the design on it. And it was a very interesting novel. His descriptions are just kind of amazing in this, and it deals with some interesting stuff, even though it's a very, very little novel. And the character, I forget his name, and I would slaughter it because I don't speak French, but it starts out with his mother dying, and he doesn't show a lot of emotion at his mother's funeral or regarding his mother's death, and that kind of comes back to bite him later on in the book, because he ends up killing somebody, and it doesn't fare well for him. I enjoyed this book very much, and I'm going to look for more by him. Let's see. I also read, I'm into comics, and I had picked this up quite a while ago, and I picked this up because predominantly for the John Buscema artwork in it, because he's a favorite of mine, and the first comics I read were Avengers Comics drawn by him, and I love the artwork in it. Maybe the story wasn't the greatest, but just great epic work in there, and I enjoyed it. It's got the Fantastic Four, the Avengers. It's got all kinds of neat characters in there, and the artwork is just, you can't go wrong. Very, very, very cool book. So I read that. Currently, what I'm reading is Hombre by Elmore Leonard. That's next on my list. I'm about halfway through. It's kind of a very short book. That's the writing in there. It's fairly large, and there's some fairly big margins in there. So it's a fairly quick book to read, and I'm really enjoying it. I'd never read it before. I've read Elmore Leonard, but I've never read this particular one before, and I'm really enjoying it. I'll be finished that very soon. And I was lucky enough yesterday to find this book. This kind of thing, getting Sherlock Holmes books, that I need are an exception to my Read What You Own challenge. So I got this book, nice Penguin edition, of the Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And these are pastiche stories. You'll see here after Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but these were written very soon during, while Arthur Conan Doyle was alive, or very soon after he died. So they're almost contemporary stories to when he was around. And I was happy to find this. I wasn't really aware of this book, and I was so happy to find it. But they've got stories in here: The Adventure of the First Class Carriage by Ronald Knox, The Adventure of the Sheffield Banker, The Adventure of the Unique Hamlet by Vincent Starrett, who is a famous Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes scholar, The Adventure of the Marked Man. These are all like awesome, well-known stories, and I have some of them in other anthologies, but not all of them. So I was really happy to find this book, this little torn up, beat up paperback, and I was just, what an incredible treasure that was to find. So yeah, I just wanted to do a real quick update with you. But yeah, I mean, let me know if you guys are even interested in updates like this. I'll try to make them interesting, but and I'll deal with other books on my shelf. Like I think I've promised to do an Ellery Queen one and a Robert E. Howard one with all the Robert E. Howard paperbacks I have on my shelf. I've got, I'll do a Mike Camera one, and so I've got a whole bunch of Mike Shane paperbacks with the Robert McGinnis covers. So, I'll get to them eventually. I've got some nonfiction stuff. I've got some classic stuff, and eventually I'll get around to doing an episode on those. But I just wanted to touch base with you guys, and I hope everyone's doing well. And I mean, if it's snowy and miserable out where you are, make sure you drive safely and be safe and take care of yourselves. Take care, everyone. Keep reading.